Børge Brende steps down as CEO of the World Economic Forum after the forum launches a probe into his past ties with Jeffrey Epstein. The resignation follows a massive DOJ file release that reportedly shows continued contact and controversial remarks about the United Nations. Documents allegedly reference a claim that Davos can replace the UN, which is triggering global political backlash. So here's what the Epstein files reveal, how the World Economic Forum responded, and what this means for global leadership and Davos in 2026.
The chief executive officer of the World Economic Forum, Børge Brende, stepped down from his post after 8 years on February 26th. His resignation came after the organization launched an internal probe into his past ties with disgraced financier and convicted pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. Brende's exit from the organizer of the annual summit in Davos came less than a month after the DOJ released more than 3 million trove of Epstein files, which exposed that Norway's former foreign minister had stayed in touch with the American financier long after he was convicted of sex trafficking. According to the documents released by the DOJ, the WEF head was seen planning against the United Nations and even agreed with Epstein that Davos can replace the UN. The WEF chief announced his exit after careful consideration and wrote, "Now is the right moment for the forum to continue its important work without distractions," in his statement. The forum stated in its statement that it honors his choice to resign and conveyed gratitude to Mr. Brende for his instrumental leadership during a pivotal period of reforms. The World Economic Forum opened its investigation in early February 2026 after the U.S. Department of Justice released a major tranche of files on Epstein, which revealed many names and drew fresh scrutiny to the matter. However, the forum has not provided any information about the nature of Brende's ties with Epstein, and it is also not confirmed whether the probe will continue even after his resignation. The WEF announced that Alois Swingy will take on the role of interim president and chief executive as the board oversees the leadership transition. Børge Brende's resignation comes as a surprise, as just a month ago on January 21st, he was at Davos sharing the stage with U.S. President Donald Trump, who was also mentioned in the Epstein files more than 1,000 times. However, the duo did not discuss Epstein on stage. They discussed the economy, Greenland, and U.S. foreign policy.
The U.S. economy is doing really well. But how to sustain this growth moving forward? Because there's always a recession looming around the corner.
Well, you know, the one thing about economies and recessions is sometimes you get hit unexpectedly and there's nothing you can do about it. All brilliant people, but there's nothing. One example was COVID. We had an economy going at levels like nobody had ever seen my first 2.5, 3 years. And then I heard the word pandemic, not COVID. They came up with that name over a period of time. We won't get into that. But I heard the word pandemic. And I had a poll come out that was so strong just prior to that. And I was with the two best pollsters, McLaughlin and Fabrizio. And they said, sir, George Washington and Abraham Lincoln, if they came back and ran as president and vice president, they couldn't beat you. And then what happened is the following day, I was told to stay tuned because there's something really bad happening in China. There are bodies laying all over Wuhan, right around that certain building that we talk about. I always said it came from Wuhan. It did come from Wuhan. And they were body bags. We saw it by satellite. And they said, there are strange things happening in China. And so it began. And we ended up with the COVID and the whole world suffered. We did a phenomenal job. I don't think we got the credit we deserved. We did something that Operation Warp Speed, which some people say was one of the greatest military feats ever. We did a great job. Used our military, used a lot of people. But sometimes you get hit with things, nothing you can do. you get hit with things like that unexpectedly. And we got through it. And when I left, the stock market was higher than it was previous to the COVID coming up. And I called it a great achievement. But things happen, bad things happen. The things that we can stop are wars if we're smart. That we can stop. Those are a matter of being intelligent and having intelligent people on the other side, because wars are the worst of all. Wars are worse than anything. But we can stop wars because that's sort of up to us. But things like dust flying in the air, wherever COVID comes from or whatever comes, sometimes you have to be a little bit lucky. But we are poised to have an economy like no other, not only in this country, but anywhere. And you know, when you hear the kind of numbers that I can tell you that Scott Bessent was with me the other day, and he's looking at numbers. He said, I can't. And that's all he's done his whole life, pretty much your whole life. Scott, you weren't going to be a football player, I don't think. Scott was not that great at football, but he was always good at numbers, right? And he was looking at numbers. He said, I've never seen anything like this. We're poised to do things that no other country has ever done. And, you know, luck, I hate to say it, but we need a little luck. We don't want to get hit by something that nobody could have thought. Whoever thought we were going to hit by a pandemic? You know, when I heard the word pandemic, I said, oh, that's an ancient problem. World War I, they lost 100 million people. It actually ended World War I. A lot of people don't know. The Spanish flu in World War I ended the war because all the soldiers were sick. The soldiers were so sick on both sides, and that war was raging, and they were all dying from the Spanish flu. They were sick as dogs. They couldn't fight. So, you know, you don't know how that would have turned out. But so we do, I mean, subject to that, and I always have to put a caveat in for it, but we're poised to have the greatest growth of any large country, I think any country that there's been. When you look at what's happening in the United States, it's really amazing.
Thank you. One thing that maybe keeps you up at night, I know you don't sleep that much anyway, Mr. President, is the debt. The U.S. debt is high, is now the biggest expenditure on your budget. How to get out of that impasse?
Well, the big thing is growth. I mean, growth is the way. If we grow like this, we go from having at $37 trillion. We go from having high debt to low debt. But we also are cutting expenses, you know, the old-fashioned way. We have extraordinary growth. I think we're going to be growing our way out. I think we're going to be paying off debt. We're taking in tremendous money from tariffs fairly. And again, I'm using them judiciously. You know, Switzerland's a case study. I could have gotten much more. I could have asked for much more. But we're using them judiciously. But I think growth, most importantly, and then cutting costs. Now, if you take a look at Minnesota, $19 billion in fraud and other things. People going to airports, they came into the country, they don't have 10 cents, and they're leaving with hundreds of thousands of cash in their bags. When we get to that, and our DOJ, Pam, and Todd, and all the people that work over there, and all of the people that work in here, I can tell you, Scott Bessent is working on that. It's a priority, right? You have your whole team. We're in there looking for where this money is coming from, how much it is. It could be more than $19 billion. Can you believe that? That's just one state. If we were able to cut out 50% of the fraud, 50%, and we should be able to do better than that, we would have a balanced budget without having to talk about even growth. So we have a lot of options, but we're working very hard on that. That's a big deal. It's not just the protests, the fake protests done by agitators and, you know, professional insurrectionists. That's what they are. They're professional troublemakers. But we are looking very strong at the money too in Minnesota and other places.